Welcome to 30 Minutes of Faith. We're very happy today to have Pastor Leon Brown from Capital City Seventh-day Adventist with us. I got a little tongue-tied there. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, that's all right.
Tell us where you were born and raised, please.
John, I was born on the island, the beautiful island of Jamaica.
Ah.
I was born there. My mom and dad actually moved back to Jamaica, so they live in Jamaica now. But I was born there, and I grew up in upstate New York, Rochester, New York.
You have brothers and sisters?
Two sisters, and they both live in Rochester. Well, let's take that back. I have two sisters and a half-sister, and my half-sister lives in Chicago.
And are you close to your half-sister as much as your
yeah.
sisters?
It's my heart.
My baby sister's a half-sister, but she's just been my baby sister all my life.
Well, actually, she's older than me, so she's not really.
But what you worked through,
Yeah,
right?
it's my heart.
And how about wife and children?
I have a wife, wonderful wife of 26 years now, and I have two boys, Leon, the second, and Lawrence.
And where did you and your wife meet?
We met in graduate school. I met in Andrews while I was in seminary, and so it's been a wonderful 26 years.
And was it sort of love at first sight when you first saw her? You just kind of went hubba hubba, or?
It was. I remember I was coming from church. I'm Seventh-day Adventist. It was on Sabbath, and as we're coming from church, they were going off the school campus, and they looked and they saw me, and they said, "Leon, come on, go to dinner with us." So we went to dinner, and there were three couples. A wonderful story. There were three couples in that room that day, and all three of us got married, and we're still married to this day. So
That is a great story.
Awesome. Yeah.
How's the church in Jamaica?
Church in Jamaica is growing. Actually, there are a lot of Seventh-day Adventists in Jamaica. It's amazing work. It feels like, as you drive around Jamaica, it feels like everywhere you go, there's a Seventh-day Adventist church. It's grown in leaps and bounds.
About 4 years ago, we spent some time in Jamaica for a few days. And one of the things I really liked, Leon, was the darks and the lights.
Yeah.
I liked that.
Yes.
We shouldn't have to worry about the color of our skin because we're all children of God.
No.
But they said at one time there's a restaurant right down there about a block away, and there's a light woman that runs that. Go down there, and when you see her, you'll know you're in the right place.
Right.
I like that a lot.
One of the surprising things when people travel to Jamaica is that there are people that are Asian that are Jamaican. There are people that are Indian that are Jamaican. There are people that are black that are Jamaican. And they're all Jamaican, and when they open their mouth and talk, they all have the same language. It's amazing. It's so awesome.
How old were you when you left there?
I was probably about 8 or 9. I was young, pretty young.
And how long did it take you to lose the
Well,
Jamaican, which is a wonderful thing to listen to?
it's called patois, and it's awesome. But when you get here, first thing you realize is that in order to fit in, to assimilate, you have to kind of lose the accent. So there are times when I put it on, and there are times when I need it, and sometimes I don't. So
if you went to visit your parents, you'd run right back
yeah.
to it, and you'd be Jamaican again the way you'd go.
Yeah, I have a funny story. I went to we have something called a Pathfinder Camporee. There's 30,000 people from all over the world, and our Pathfinders, like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts,
Right.
They travel to Oshkosh in Wisconsin. So I went with my Pathfinders. I drove cross country. I went to Oshkosh, and when I got there, I ran into a pastor that I knew that was Jamaican. And I started talking to him. My members had never heard me talk patois, so I started talking, and they looked at me like this, and they said, "Pastor Brown," and it was just the funniest thing. But yeah, you use it when you need to. It's like someone speaking Spanish. When you're with someone that speaks Spanish, you speak Spanish.
I was in Oshkosh a few years ago on business, and a man said there's a really good Holiday Inn out on the harbor if you drive out there a little bit. So I went out, and sure enough, it was a nice 3 or 4 story and a beautiful view of the lake and all those other things. And nice restaurant there, and everything was just, I thought, wow, this is as good as it gets. About 2 o'clock in the morning, this bullhorn went off from a ship that had come in. And it was, I thought it was shaking the walls, and I got up, and the lights out there in the harbor were all turned on. It was bright as day out there in the middle of the night. I'd never experienced anything like that before.
Yeah.
That was very unique, and by that time I was wide awake, and I just stood there at the window for about a half hour and watched what they were doing. It was, people say Oshkosh. I say, the harbor. I don't know about that.
There's a base there. The first camporee they had, we drove cross country, like I said earlier. And when we got there, first it was an empty air base, and then 30,000 tents go up. During the camporee, there was a storm, and a tornadic storm. So while it was going on, the young people in that camporee knelt down and prayed, and God just covered that whole camporee. The tornado actually jumped over it.
Wow.
and never touched it. But they went touch things around it, but never touched that area. So that's been a powerful reminder of the power of God, and I just love that story.
And we only have to ask.
Yeah.
It seems like He doesn't
Yeah.
make it too hard for
Yeah,
us or any of
it's
those
amazing.
things. So tell us about your church here.
Capital City Seventh-day Adventist Church is an awesome church. It's probably about 780 members there. It's multicultural. It's mostly African American, but it's been mixed. It's multicultural. It's in an area where, and one of the things we're looking at now is an area where there are a number of different cultures around us, and so we sit in the community, and we've been attempting in many ways to try to find a way to reach out to these cultures. It's an amazing place to be.
And how often do you get to teach and preach?
I'm the senior pastor, so I get to teach and preach at least 2 to 3 times a month, and I actually enjoy that.
And is teaching about a gospel message and God and Jesus and all of those other things, is it something that's just sort of pretty easy for you?
If you know anything about me, you'll know that I love people, and I love the Word of God. When we get into church on Sabbath morning, the first thing I do is I raise the Bible and I quote Psalms 119, 105, which says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." I do that because I'm simply concerned about one thing, and that is to share the love of God with the world by opening the Bible and by teaching from the Word of God. That's what I love, and that's what I do. And every Sabbath, the thing I do, which I enjoy the most, is I always go to God and say, "Lord, show me what you want me to share with the people of God."
What's the demographics of your congregation?
I would say our congregation is probably the 80% African American. But
How about age?
I would say we have a population of probably 20-30% that are seniors, and then we have a large group in there of younger members. You know, we probably have below 50s. I think the majority of members are below 50s.
And so plenty of children coming to here?
Yes, plenty of children.
Were you raised in a good religious home?
Yes, my parents, when I was born, my parents were not Christians at all. My mother found out through another family member, to a friend, about the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and she and my dad decided that they were going to serve the Lord. I was the first one in my family to be baptized, and so it was an exciting time for me. And after that, everybody else came into the church, and we spent our whole life basically as Christians.
It's such a wonderful way to live life, to be God-fearing, to be prayerful, and to sing and, do all service, all of the things that are so important. Now, where will you be 10 years from now?
That's a good question. One of the things that's happened to me over the last couple of months is I'll be transitioning from Capital City to a new post, a new position, and I've just been by the Northern California Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. I've been assigned the responsibility of taking on several roles. I'll be the African American coordinator. I'll be the inner city director. I'll be the men's ministry director, and I'll also be the what was the other one? Prison ministry director. So I'll be taking on those responsibilities for them.
And will you stay and live here?
I'll stay and live here. Yes, I'll continue to live in the valley, and then what we'll do is, but I won't be able to pastor the church and do both. It's just too much. So eventually I'll be transitioning over to that.
Do you know, in the prison work, the chaplaincy work, which I'm involved in, sometimes, you'll get a phone call and they'll say, I need a rabbi.
Yeah,
Got to have a rabbi. They'll call the next night and say, I need an African American Christian minister. The next night, can you send me a Latino Catholic priest?
Yes.
And they want to be loved by the ones that they perceive will love them and understand them and all those other things. When I have gone to some of those, and they're usually either pretty sick or they've been hurt.
Yes, sir.
They've been thumped or, whatever. Mm-hmm. They want two things. They want God and they want their mother. If God and their mother could walk in the room, they'd feel safe again.
Yes.
They'd say, okay, I'm okay. And even though I've messed up, these two people are accepting of me. So how do you think you'll find the prison ministries?
We at this point, and one of the things I'm discovering right now is, as the coordinator for all of these different responsibilities, I'm going to be responsible for the work of prison ministry, coordinating the work of the prison ministry throughout Northern California for the 39,000 plus members in this area. So we're gonna be trying to identify in what areas Seventh-day Adventists can contribute to the prison ministry. Right now, we're very active. We're in Vacaville, we're in DVI and Stock. We're all over the place. But I want to find out, that's the first thing, one of the things I want to find out is how effective we're being, and then take a look at it, and take a look at all of this, pick it apart, and begin to see if there are areas that we can do a little better job at. And if we can, we're going to try to do that.
And is this, you know, in the ministry, is this, it's the old story of, you know, put the guardrail up on the cliff so they don't crash,
Right.
or put the ambulance down at the bottom to, you know, triage and minister to them down there. So how do you see that role? Will you still be able to touch youth and children and things, or are you going to spend a whole lot of time with those that are already down at the bottom of the cliff who've already crashed?
The great part about my new responsibility is I will be doing more than one thing. So with the role as African American coordinator, I'll be involved with the churches and the pastors. There's 11 churches and involved in trying to create programs for them. The previous pastor that had it created a camp for young people called Virgil's Camp. So I'm hopefully we'll be able to continue that camp and be able to bring young people out of inner city up to Leone Meadows and have them actually have a program that they could become involved in.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's going to be nice. It's going to be interesting.
10 years ago, could you have predicted this?
No. There's a funny story. I finished seminary. I finished school, and I finished seminary, and it took me 10 years from the day I finished seminary until the time I actually got a call to be a pastor.
Really?
Yeah. So when I look back now. It's kind of amazing to see the transition God has taken me on. You know, and now my primary goal is to follow His will no matter where He leads. Sometimes my will and His will intersect. Sometimes my will and His will, I want to go here, and God says go here. I've learned to follow God's will, and whenever you do, you'll never go wrong.
Little age and maturity helps,
Yeah.
doesn't it, as you go along.
Yes, it does.
That's a wonderful thing. You know, I got drafted to Vietnam, and all I could think about is I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I was loyal and patriotic. My father-in-law, my grandfathers, everybody had been in the military. So I wasn't afraid of that. In fact, I sort of viewed that as, oh, we'll go to boot camp and have a great time and all that
Right.
stuff, but don't send me over somewhere where I want to die. But at some point in time, you have to kind of get on your knees and say, what should I do?
Yes.
Because maybe death is one of the things God has in mind for you.
Yes.
So you have to say, I'm going to give myself to you. You tell me, you lead me where I should go.
Yes.
And I never went to Vietnam. I went to other bases and other assignments, but I never went to Vietnam in 6 years.
Yes.
And I didn't ask for that.
Yes.
I just asked for, can you guide me and set me where I ought to be? Yeah. My mother was sweating bullets, and, all those other sorts of things. Now, how Sacramento was a religious community?
How religious is it?
How do you see it as a religious community? Are we, if 8 was really, really good and 2 is really, really poor, are we just a 3 or 4? Or
No, what I found in Sacramento is that Sacramento, I'll give you a number. I think the best number I would come up with is probably a 7. What I found is that the people in Sacramento are the most amazing people, and
I agree.
It's just how I found it to be, and my members are some of the most amazing people that I've ever been with. In fact, I love my church. I love the people there. I love it, and the other thing I've learned is that because Sacramento is the capital of California, there's so many dynamics. There are members that work in the capital. There are others that work in industry, work in government, and so you get this great pool of people who have all of these amazing skills, so that you can do amazing things in ministry, and that's rare when you, as a pastor, to get to a church to find all of those awesome skills in one place. And so for me, it's been awesome.
When you wake up in the morning, do you usually have a pretty clear vision of what you got to get done today, or what you wish would get done?
Yeah. I think for me, what I do when I get up is I get up, I go in a room by myself, away from the family, and what I do is I spend time with God. And that's the first thing for me is I want to first of all talk to God about my own personal relationship with Him. What I've learned over the last several years is that when you fall in love with God,
it's a good way to say it.
Yeah, when you fall in love with God, it's not about my will. The text says, not my will, but thy will be done. So I ask God to order my step. Even coming down here this morning, I wanted to find out what his will was. What did he want me to say? What is the most important and primary focus that he wants? Because when you live your life that way, I don't have any regrets. I don't have to look back at my life and say, man, I wish I'd have done this. I wish I'd have done that. If he's leading my life, then I don't have to look back with regrets. The last thing I want to do is to, we are, as pastors, I get a chance to go to people when they're sick, when they're dying. I'm sometimes the last person they see before they die. And, one of the things I see people go through is that struggle with regret. And I've decided that I never want to live my life with regret, or I wish I had done such and such. So I've decided that I want to find out what God's will and purpose for my life, and I just want to follow it.
What do you think he wanted you to say today down here?
To be honest with you, the primary focus, I think, is that that we ought to find a way. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions about the love of Jesus Christ, and I've been reading a lot lately in the book of Romans. And the key, I think, is that a lot of people have a misconception that that we are about religion, simply about religion. But I think when you fall in love with God, and that's the primary thing, I'm determined now, not just to be a Seventh-day Adventist or my friends being a Baptist or a Presbyterian or a Methodist, but I want to be a man of God. And I think a lot of people miss that mark, that it's not simply wearing the label, but we have to get our hearts and mind connected to the Almighty, the Lord Jesus Christ. And that, if I had to send one message to the world, that would be the message I would send to the world.
I have a personal opinion, Leon, that if God stood off like the space shuttle and just looked down at the earth,
Yeah.
he wouldn't say, oh, well, there's my Muslim group.
Yeah.
There's my Seventh-day Adventist group. Oh, look over there. There's the Jewish group. He would say, there are my children.
These are my children.
And there they are on this planet.
Yeah.
I was telling some people the other day, Carl Sagan, the great scientist, the one saying that he always used that I really, really liked, just rang my bell, was, here we are living on this round thing made out of metal and rock, and we're orbiting a humdrum star. And when he referred to the humdrum star, it grabbed me, because I thought, no, the sun gives us daylight and energy, and we couldn't exist without the sun.
Right.
But he said there's billions of those just in our own galaxy, and then all the galaxies, outside of that.
Right.
And I like the scripture in the New Testament where heaven would know us the same as the sparrow that falls.
Yes, falls, yes.
And so if he stood out there and said, well, look at my earth there, he wouldn't be saying, he'd say, wow, look at this wonderful group here, and look at my children there, and he wouldn't be saying they are Republicans or Democrats.
That's right.
Or black or
Yes,
white.
yes.
It wouldn't matter,
Yes.
sort of thing. Now, how about the church per se, Capital City? How is it going to be doing 10 years from now?
Good question. I have a philosophy, and one of the things I learned over time is that as a pastor, most churches, and you look at churches, most churches don't really know where they're going. They just go to church each week, and that's what they do. So in the last year and a half, we've taken Capital City on a journey. We've been developing a strategic plan. And just last Sunday, we had a meeting, and we voted the strategic plan in place. Now is implementation time, and that's the most exciting time, and that could also be the most difficult time. We took a look at, in our strategic plan, it took us a year just to look at our community, took a look at the dynamics of the church, what's our likes, dislikes. Most people don't realize is that churches have a life cycle of probably about a 70-year life cycle like an adult. And as you in this life cycle, you grow, you reach a pinnacle, and then you begin to die. And if most churches took a look at themselves, they'd realize that some of our churches who thought they were doing really wonderful are probably on a downward spiral, and Capital City was at that spot. So now we have to take a look at that to try to find a way to put life back into that cycle again, so that we can start growing. So in 10 years, I'm hoping it'll be our goal is to be one of the most vibrant churches in the Sacramento Valley.
I go to a congregation in Orangevale where we've attended for 31 years.
Yes.
When we started going there, our children were elementary and junior high, high school age. And there were a whole bunch of old people in that congregation. Yes. And they're all dead and gone now. and we're starting to be the old guys there. And there's just a gazillion. In fact, a lot of were just the children, just the children of our friends and that
Yes.
are now adults, and they've got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 kids, and they're actively involved in a whole bunch of things in the community. And it seems like it happened that quick,
Yes,
but
it
if you
does.
stop and think about
Yeah.
it, no, the 3 decades plus, it took quite a while to get there. So the strategic plan of
Yes.
keeping the momentum and all those other things is really, really important. Do you think Christianity is well in not only our region, but in our country?
Is Christianity well? That's an awesome question. Is Christianity well in our country? That's a loaded question, actually, I think, in some ways, because uh, I want to look at, I listen to the news, and I listen to all the things that are happening right now in America and around the globe. I hear the dynamics of the Muslim struggle with Christianity, the Jewish struggle. It makes you really think and ponder, But in America, I think the churches that are focusing simply on the love of Jesus Christ and trying to lead men and women to Christ, that are understanding the fact that the Bible has not changed. See, here's what I believe. Over the years, and I'm getting a little older now. Over the years, I always thought, and I always
I understand that
yeah,
concept.
yeah. Oh man, and when you're younger, you always think, oh man, I can just do what I want to
Yeah.
do, and I'm okay. But now I'm starting to understand that when the basic principles God has outlined for us, they don't change. And the thing I understand more than ever before is that they're best for us. So now when you follow those steps, I don't have to worry about certain things in my life. I can look back at my life and I can see that certain patterns, certain things mistakes I would have made, I have not made. Certain struggles I would have had, I don't have. Not that I'm perfect, not that I'm in any way this saint or anything, but God has been good to me. You know what I mean? And I've learned, and as I begin to teach my members, is that when we follow God's lead, you're never going to go wrong.
I've lived a charmed life. If I fell dead
Yeah.
tomorrow, people I think would be able to say you had a nice life. You got to do a lot of nice things in life. But truth has
Yep.
always been truth.
Truth is truth.
Truth was yesterday, truth is truth today, truth will be truth tomorrow. And I think as you get older, you understand that a little bit more. You're not trying to massage and figure out and change and, all of those sorts of things. Now, will your children and grandchildren, when your grandchildren are your age, will they be safe and secure in a gospel plan?
I pray that when my children are old enough, God will always be here, and we'll be celebrating around the throne of God. I believe in the second coming of Jesus Christ. I'm Seventh-day Adventist. I love being a Seventh-day Adventist, but at the same time, I know that God is coming, and He's coming soon. I saw your show back, and you asked a question about whether or not God is coming, and I believe that the Bible says, "He that shall come will come and will not tarry," and I believe that. I have great expectation. In the past and in the last few years, people have tried to predict the second coming of Christ, and without failure. In the past, others, Seventh-day Adventists, back in the early days, attempted that realized it didn't work. It doesn't work. No one knows the day or the hour that God is coming. One thing we do know is we ought to get ready for His soon coming. And I believe that, I'm praying that when my grandkids get to be old enough, that they'll be ready. But I'm hoping and praying that He'll be here.
And it kind of feels like it could be tomorrow, or
Yep.
we got
Yep.
400 more
Yep.
years to go.
Yep.
Kind of sort of feels that way. Do you think that is sin any different now than sin was 3, 4, 5,000 years ago?
We sometimes think that, but it does. I don't think it has been. It is, John.
Sin is sin.
Sin is
People
sin.
still, the devil is still real.
Yes.
All of those other sorts of things. How long will you be an active teacher and preacher and pastor?
Excellent
I mean,
question.
do you have to stop at 63 or something? No.
No, I don't think as a pastor doesn't have a. I think at some point I will want to not have be responsible for a church, because you have duties and responsibilities.
responsibility.
It's a lot harder than people think. They think people.
Sure.
Some people say, well, pastors only work on Sabbath or on Sunday for lunch, but they don't realize there's much more than that. And at some point, I want to be able to actually be able to travel. I love to travel, go around the world, do things. But I have a passion. One part of my passion, that's what I was praying to God about, is people, young kids. I remember being a young man in Jamaica, and I'm dreaming about education. I just have a passion for education, and I have this passion. I want to one day be able to provide educational opportunities for young people around the world. You know, it's not just here. Once I traveled to Africa, and I went to a school, and in the school I saw young people who were young 8-year-olds. They were set apart. They were at this school, and they were getting education. And I want to be able to one day provide education for young people.
About 8 or 10 years ago, we spent 3 weeks in Africa.
Yeah.
And we were with 3 or 4 other people when we went into a small village. And a woman there had a bag of just brand new pencils, hadn't
Yes.
been sharpened yet. And let's see, she had some regular little school erasers, and she had some little, what we used to call those nickel pads. You know?
Yes.
And she had these in these little bags, and she was going to give them. Well, so she handed them out to children who I would say between the ages of 5 and 10. And they understood the notebook, you know, they could fold the pages, and they kind of looked at the eraser. But there were a couple of them who had never seen a pencil.
Yes.
You could see the look on their face. And they looked at the unsharpened end, and they looked at the new eraser, and you know, they kind of roll the pencil, and it was like, what is this? What do I do with that? And we were trying to explain to them, though they didn't speak English, that, you know, that can be sharpened, and then you can write on the pad, you know, and if you make a mistake, and we were trying to sort of sign language it out. But one of the people, you know, stood there, one of the adults stepped up, spoke the language, and they were thrilled, and they clapped and cheered and all those other things. Well, we're coming to the end. It goes quickly, the half hour. So let me ask you, if you can wave a magic wand in the world and change or fix or repair something, what is that?
2 things. I want to be able to share the love of Christ to the whole world. That would be primary. The second thing would be I want to be able to give, as long as we're here on this earth, I want to give as many children the opportunity to have an education as you possibly can. That would be my life's vision and work if I could do that.
And die a happy man.
Yeah, I would.
Thanks, brother.
John, thank you.
Nice to be with you.
It's a pleasure.
And God bless you and your congregation and your new work and excitement. That
Yeah,
sounds
I'm excited
exciting.
about it. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right.